Welcome along, everyone. I'm Andrew King of Legal Innovator and also LawFest. And I'm delighted to be your host here today for this webinar with guests from Vixx, VXT, and also Settify. Joining us today is Rachel Barnet, Amanda Kerdel of Settify, also Luke Campbell of VXT, and throughout the webinar, we'll delve into the modern automation strategies and tips on client engagement for law firms. Just some housekeeping before we get started. As far as the format, we'll start off with some intros to both Settify and VXT, and then we'll move on to get more into the subject matter itself. As we go through, I encourage everyone to ask questions as we go. Probably makes it a lot more relevant to the questions that you've got and the answers that people are providing, but we'll also have some time at the end if you want to leave some questions at the end. So just do that through the Q&A functions. I'm sure over the last few years, everyone's used to how to use Zoom and that now. So ask questions as we go through, and we'll endeavour to try and answer everything we can. But if we can't, we'll give you details at the end of how to sort of contact the respective people to sort of carry on the conversation afterwards. Just a little bit before we start, a large part of what I do is looking to raise awareness of how to innovate and leverage technology, how we can all adapt and work differently. I think we'll probably all realise over the last few years, things are definitely changing in the legal space, especially how legal services are delivered. None more so than we've probably all experienced in the last couple of years. The legal profession is like everyone else in society. We've all had to sort of adapt how we work, and at the same time had to sort of make changes quickly. And we've seen a lot of people sort of that have come along for that ride, and a lot of others that sort of it was sort of quite abrupt change to what they had to do. And I think sort of even before sort of COVID, change was already happening. But sort of, as I say, sort of more are coming along for the ride now, and they're embracing sort of technology as we go through. Just a little bit more about myself. I wear a number of hats. I've spent 12 years inside law firms and also 12 out as well. I know which side I prefer to be on, but sort of work back in with law firms constantly. Part of one of the hats that I wear, I run the LawFest conference, which has been running now for 10 years, which is all about sort of most of the points I just mentioned before, all about trying to learn how to adapt, innovate, how to leverage technology. It's a fantastic day of collaborating, networking, and we're up and running again in 2 weeks, back in person in Auckland. We've got 25 speakers from New Zealand abroad, all providing their practical insights on that. Probably on that, it's a really good segue into today's webinar, really, because both Settify and VXT are sponsors of LawFest, and it's great to have their support there, as we've got over 40 sponsors this year showcasing the wares. But sort of today is all about Settify and VXT to learn a bit more about them. But I'm sure as we move forward as well, anyone that wants to come along to LawFest that hasn't already registered, sort of to reach out to Settify or Vixx, and I'm sure they can sort of help you out with some discount tickets and that as well. So right, that's probably enough for me. Let's get on to meet our guests. Probably let's start with Amanda there. So Amanda, I know Settify was launched only a few short years ago, and it seemed to be growing sort of an exponential rate. Can you tell us a bit more about sort of how you started and where you're at now?
Yeah, of course. Thank you, Andrew. And hello, everyone. Thank you for joining. Very excited for LawFest as well. And funny you mentioned, Andrew, that you've been looking into innovation for a while. That's exactly how Settify came about. So Max Patterson, who's one of our co-founders, he was he's a family lawyer. He was sitting in his family law meeting being like, why am I frantically trying to fill out all these notes about my client when I could have it before the initial meeting and have a really valuable first appointment where my client is prepared and I feel prepared as a lawyer as well. And I'm a family lawyer as well, so I can resonate with that. I have always been frantically trying to write down notes before I had Settify. So that's kind of how it all started. And Max Patterson teamed up with Athol Bertley, and then Settify was born in 2017. Since then, so we started off with family law. There's been a significant growth, and we've moved into areas of wills and estates, probate, and estate disputes because our partner firms actually wanted them as well. So now we're global, which is very exciting. So we started off in Australia, we've moved to Canada, UK, the US as well, and New Zealand, which we're very excited about too. The journey of Sedify is a really nice journey because Sedify's focus has always been on clients, and Rachel will probably go into this in more detail in terms of our insights. But when a client comes through Sedify, a short description of what it is it's an onboarding platform where they can start their matter at any time of the day, whether that be family law, wills, estates, probate, or estate disputes. When they're taken through Settify, they're actually taken on a really beautiful handheld journey where they're introduced to matters, introduced to concepts they would have never heard of before. For example, the difference between divorce and property settlement, which is just, I always have to explain that in my initial meetings. So when the client comes through, the lawyer then receives really tailored information about that client, including a really detailed brief, a assets and liability schedule, chronology and balance sheet, and that's all done for you. So what we're seeing is emotional, fragile clients are actually feeling more prepared for their initial meeting, and lawyers are also more prepared for their meetings as well. So that's kind of Settify's journey from inception to where we are now, which is very exciting. And over 500 firms actually use us now, and over 85,000 clients come through. So there's definitely a need for it as well. So hopefully that answers that question there.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's really good to sort of hear a bit more about you there, Amanda, and also Settify as well. Probably moving on to Luke. I know that Luke, Vixx's grown a lot since we first met at LawFest 18 months or so ago now. Today you work with lawyers all over the world. Just telling us before we started the call, sort of rolling out in Hong Kong. You're not a lawyer yourself, so how did you get into this industry?
Yeah, thanks, Andrew. So Vixx is a cloud-based phone system built for law firms. I started it a while ago, now about 4 years ago, when we were solving a different problem. But basically today, we work with law firms providing a phone system product that integrates with your practice management system to automatically save things like time entries and notes from calls. Automating that stuff often saves up to about 5 minutes per call. So today it's really exciting. We work with hundreds of lawyers who use Vixx every day, and then the wider community as well. In fact, I think our customers make a little over 10,000 calls per week all over the world, and that figure is growing pretty quickly. Since we launched Vixx Call, the phone system, in March of 2021, calls through the platform have grown by almost 30% every month. But yeah, we started 4 years ago solving a different problem. I was a student at university and I really hated getting voicemail. So it was a big pain for me. We eventually built the first cross-platform mobile app in New Zealand to help people manage their voicemail, solve that kind of annoying pain. And we saw a lot of success. We grew to about 10,000 users globally, which was really exciting for us, kind of first-time business owners. And but the problem was we never really found product market fit. So we pivoted the business. A lot of lawyers were using the product, the voicemail app, and still do today. And so we were talking to them about, what are other problems that we could solve for them that would be really valuable. We actually ended up interviewing, 100 people, including lawyers, practice managers, and partners. And these are like hour-long in-depth interviews, just trying to learn about the legal profession, the work that lawyers do every day, and the problems that they face. And, I asked this question, it's my favorite question for interviews like this, which was, what's something that you do pretty regularly, maybe daily, weekly, or so, that really frustrates you? And every lawyer we spoke to said recording time, and every lawyer we spoke to who made a lot of calls said recording time from phone calls. So that's the problem we set out to solve when we changed the business kind of around the end of 2020. And it's been working really well since then. So yeah, we've learned a lot. Today we work with hundreds of law firms just throughout the community, and we've worked with many more over the past few years, trying to understand how people spend their time, what's important when considering new software. And we've seen a lot of diversity when it comes to the level of technology adoption throughout the industry. And I'm really looking forward to sharing a couple of the lessons that we've learned working with the legal sector really closely, kind of from an outsider's perspective today.
Yeah, that's really interesting, Luke, especially a couple of points there I sort of pick up on. You talk about sort of identifying sort of a problem and then developing a solution for people, but also the other thing, listening to the clients. I think so often those sort of skills and the importance of that can be lost because we all want to move quickly and a lot of reinventing the wheel, but just taking that time to learn what those problems are and how we can actually provide more value to you. I think it's really refreshing, and especially as you're starting out, to actually see the importance of that.
Yeah, massively. I think one of the things that people that we spoke to a lot brought up was people were kind of tired of, IT geeks like me coming into the industry and saying, this is what you need to solve all of your problems. And so I think what was really refreshing for the people that we talked to is we kind of took the opposite approach. And, you kind of have to, if you're not an expert like the Settify team straight from the get-go, having that legal expertise, you really need to sit down and spend that time. Otherwise, you're just going to go somewhere that isn't really helpful for people.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's probably a good way to move on to you, Rachel. As Amanda said, Settify's been around for a few years now, and talking about sort of 85,000 clients that engaged to date. It must give you a lot of information there around sort of that client engagement behaviour. Can you just give us a few more insights about what you've found there?
Yes, sure. And I think this is my favorite part about Sedify. It's probably the nerdy side of me, but I think also very relevant for all lawyers working in private client areas. Having access to some very powerful and interesting insights into clients' behaviour, specific engagement behaviours, what their preferences are, is highly important for lawyers' needs to be able to meet, what the client wants. And the way that Settify operates is we obviously have a lot of clients coming in, but we also do research personally with our partner firms, and we see how they engage with their firms, how the clients are engaging with them. So it gives us this gigantic data set on client behaviours and preferences, which we then use to really give some feedback to our firms on how to do things better and what clients are wanting. And it also gives us some solid evidence, which of course all lawyers love, which is backed up, derived from clients, and we can continue to adapt our system to enhance the Settify platform to make sure that it does meet the needs and the wants of clients, lawyers, and also in order of their priority. And so talking insights is something that I just love, and I could talk forever on it. And I will just bring some very high level, interesting insights that we have done. We did a survey a couple of years ago with over 10,000 clients, and it brought us some really interesting information on, their behaviours. But one interesting thing was, of those 85,000 clients that have come through Settify to engage firms to date, 44% of those clients have come to Settify, well, through Settify to engage their firm outside of business hours, which is a significant proportion of clients who are wanting to be able to utilize something outside of business hours in their own space, in their own time, and kind of beats the stigma of when firms say, you know, oh, my clients won't use it, or they want to talk to us in person. And it's, the numbers are there. More than nearly half of the clients coming through Settify do it in their own time and space. Another really interesting one, and this is what we can see, you know, over the course of the year, we've had a look at the inquiry rates and when clients are coming through and you know, inquiring with firms and what the patterns are. And something that's really interesting is the trends within particularly family law, for example. They drop more than across the year. You can see a big drop in June and July, maybe due to holidays, and also December, another big holiday period. So it dips below the monthly average of about 20% of clients coming through to engage firms. Interestingly, and probably not surprising for most people, is that famous January post-Christmas holiday bump. That is definitely a very high and busy period of time. You can see 120% increase on the monthly averages in January. But what is a bit surprising is it's actually February, and this is prorated on, you know, days of the year and everything. February sees an 130% surge in inquiries, and that's the highest month in the year. And so we try to work with firms to say, you know, you should be leveraging these months. If you know that you're going to be getting huge surges in your inquiries in February, what can you do to really push your marketing at that stage? Where's your resources? Have some tools that are going to be available for resourcing during those times. And just to cover off on the rest of those, it's very patterned after school holidays. So it's busy in May, it's busy in October and November, and of course, January, February, March. So it's probably no surprise, but good to see those kind of things in, you know, the evidence of it. One really interesting one that we did with the survey with these clients was ask them specifically, what do you want? Like, what are you looking for when you're engaging your lawyer? What is your highest priority for, you know, engaging with a firm? And the result is quite surprising. We actually play a little game when we have our meetings and demonstrations with firms, and we show them the priorities that we asked these clients and said, you know, what do you think was the priority? It wasn't, I want to save more money. It wasn't, I want a personal service. It wasn't, you know, I want to achieve the best outcome in my matter. Of course, they're all priorities, but the highest priority by and large was that these clients wanted to understand more about the legal process they were about to engage in, which doesn't and shouldn't come as a surprise. It's an ambiguous area of law, private, you know, like family law, estate disputes, even wills and estates, if people don't know much about the process. So it just goes to show the importance of, you know, having information available to clients that can be easily accessed before they're engaging with you, but also making sure it's correct, giving the client the opportunity to empower themselves with that information, calm them, and of course, ultimately converts them. If they're coming in more prepared, your meeting's more focused, solutions focused, and gives them a lot of value, and ultimately just acts as a great kind of engagement tool. The last one I'll mention here is the personal referrals stuff. So we speak with probably 90% of the lawyers that we talk to say, all of my work comes from personal referrals, or 90% of my work comes from personal referrals, which is very common for most lawyers. But what we did is ask the people that had obviously engaged firms through Settify and said, how many lawyers did you consider before engaging this firm? How did you select your lawyer, and at what point did you make up your mind to engage this firm? So non-surprisingly, 55% of people who had chosen to engage a firm had done so because of a personal referral, which is the highest amount. No surprises. The others was 25% was just standard internet searches, what's available near me, Google reviews and stuff. Things like awards, advertisements on websites and things like that. But the 55% of referrals number, interestingly, more than half of those, when we dug deeper and said, you know, how did you, when you were referred to this firm, did you look for anyone else, or did you just go straight to this person? And each client said, more than half, 53% of those clients said that they researched at least 2 to 7 firms before choosing the lawyer that they had been personally referred to. So it does go to show that personal referrals are not solid and, you know, stuck in stone. They do look around and they are looking for options that are going to be of immediate value and service. And lastly, I will end it with the fact that we also said, had you already made up your mind about engaging with this firm before you started the Settify online process? 56% of the clients that had been personally referred to these firms said no, which means having something, online personal referrals, if you're not giving these clients the options or access to being able to engage with you outside of business hours, like our stats say, or giving them the information ahead of time to help them feel a bit more calm, you will lose the personal referrals coming through. It's very clear that clients are looking for efficiency, value for money, and things that will be easy for them to engage with. And I'll stop on the insights there and let somebody else speak, but hopefully that was quite insightful.
Yeah, that's great, Rachel. The level of detail there around some of those insights and that are just really sort of powerful. And I think you sort of made that point there about equipping people to make those more informed decisions. And often we don't, as mentioned before, we're all so busy in that, but taking the time to actually understand those patterns and that, it's really great to sort of understand sort of where people are at, and especially the client engagement. It's really, really fascinating. I'm sitting there listening and trying to take it all in. I'm sure afterwards some people will go back and listen to the recording of that part, because there's definitely some interesting points there. Probably there. Just moving more into sort of the tech itself. I know when we look around these days, there's so much tech out there in the marketplace, which is, and especially now in legal, which on one hand is great, especially when we look back 5 to 10 years ago in this space. There wasn't probably a lot of tech around, so it made things on one hand easier because you didn't have to sort of look everywhere to find the right solution, but potentially some of the solutions weren't, they were sort of a one size fits all approach for people. But obviously that creates problems for, especially for law firms and that, thinking about, okay, now how do we actually find the solutions in that's right for us? And I think probably more important with that is, for a lot of people, this can be quite overwhelming. And where do we start? And probably to you, Luke, there, it might seem obvious, but why should law firms consider automation?
Yeah, it's interesting you make the point about, like, there not being necessarily as many tools available, just a few years ago than there are today. I mean, I think I saw numbers recently that show that only 50% of law firms in the US are actually using practice management systems today. So many firms still use pen and paper, not just for like a big key piece of infrastructure like that practice management system, like say Action Step, but also for a lot of other tasks. I guess when I'm talking to the firms that we spend the most time with, there are usually 3 key benefits that they're thinking about when pursuing legal automation. Those are just simply, saving time, mitigating risk, and improving client experience, which is a big one that Sedify obviously works really well toward. I think to flesh that out a little bit, time savings is pretty simple. Software can help you work faster by automating administrative tasks that you would often do manually. Mitigating risk is an interesting one because there are really 2 areas in that. One is making sure that you're maintaining like compliance with modern rules and regulations, but the other one is one that I guess is probably, it's a little bit more taboo to talk about, but mitigating risk of client disputes and being able to resolve them quickly. I know from talking to our customers that client disputes can often be a really massive liability for firms. And so bringing in tools that help automate capturing data and saving that data, like the specific advice you might give to a client, can be really helpful there. And then finally, just on like the client experience piece, I mean, tools like Settify, being able to provide services outside of usual business hours, is obviously really cool, and it provides more like optionality to your clients. I think it also might just allow your team to perform faster and get legal matters resolved for clients more quickly, or even just improving the reliability of your services. I know pretty topical over the past few years, people have been talking a lot about, AI potentially replacing parts of the work that lawyers do every day. And I think there is some merit to that, but there is definitely a lot of useful cases where you can bring in software to help improve your work. I know there's a tool I think called LawGeeks that is able to review contracts in seconds with oftentimes more accuracy than humans. But yeah, that's probably all I'd touch on there.
Yeah, some really interesting points there, Luke, and it goes on nicely. Perhaps Amanda there. What trends do you see for law firms adapting to technology like Settify?
Yeah, so actually, firstly, just on Luke's point with people being scared on AI, if I can just say really quickly, I feel like everybody's watched iRobot, and that's why everybody is just petrified of AI. But no. So what the trends we're currently, it's kind of hard to answer that question, Andrew, actually, because we have such a variety of firms that do come to us, which is also really nice. So we have a range of firms. So it ranges from sole practitioners to mid-tier firms to top-tier firms. And what we're seeing is firms that are a sole prac, for example, may have different needs to a top-tier firm or a mid-tier firm, obviously, and they will use Sedify in a different way. So, for example, for sole practitioners, they have to wear so many hats. What they're looking for is automation of processes and to streamline it, because they're at capacity and they need to do these things to be able to do other things like business development or, going out there, networking, that type of thing. What we're seeing with top tier firms when they come and see us is trying to create that consistency, especially for the national firms, between all offices. But also they may not be as quick to respond to clients as perhaps a sole prac would. So they're trying to look for something where they can respond as soon as possible. And we do have two functions, and one of those functions is the invite function, which helps with that. So generally what happens is when a client calls up or you get a referral, you can just send off the invite within 10 seconds and the client receives something straight away. And we know, I know for a fact that when my clients come through, for instance, if they're not responded to straight away, they're going to look somewhere else. That's just, that's well known. So that invite function also helps respond to that. And the other function is the website buttons, which the bigger firms like, which just sit on your website, allow clients to just start their matter any time of the day, and then firms can take their time to respond to that as well. And there's a question, I know that Andrew's leave questions to the end, but there is a question in there where I'm breaking the rules naughty, where I see that they've asked about website buttons. And just to answer that question really quickly, what we do is we place the buttons on your website so it actually looks like it is from your firm. And when the client comes through the platform, it has all your branding colors and logos, and it has powered by Settify and a really small little inscription. So I hope that answers the question as well. So other trends we do see as well, and Rach touched on this too, is that we need to be providing our clients with online options. So adapting to that would be having those buttons on your website so clients can start their matter any time of the day, responding straight away to clients, and allowing that 44% of clients that start their matter outside of office hours to start their matter, family law, wills and estates, whatever that be. So we're seeing a lot of trends there. And last but not least, we also have a trend where people need that automation and streamlining in terms of practice management systems. So when clients come through Sedify, for example, the information from Sedify is then able to feed in their practice management system. So they're not manually having to put that data and create that new matter themselves. So Vixx could probably talk about that as well. I think you do integrations too, but that's kind of the trends we're seeing, and different firms will adapt differently and use Settify differently. And it's very nice that we can provide that offering as well.
Just on that, Amanda, I think you made a couple of points there around, we see a lot of people when they talk about innovation, leveraging technology, it's all inward focusing. It's all about internal efficiencies. And I think sort of a couple of the points you made there, and Rachel also made before, and Luke definitely covered early on, was the client-centric innovation, is that sort of really involving the client in it. And I sort of, the way I often see it is that when you talk about innovation in the legal space, the 101 was always looking internally. Whereas I think we're starting to go beyond that now, probably like a lot of the other industries have been doing for a long time, but sort of we can do it. We've got the tools available to actually be able to do that. And I think it's, yeah, just some of the points you made there, just how valuable that is for people. And the other thing I think, yeah, you just mentioned, you brought up the point of integration, and so often that's just, you talk to someone about sort of procuring and looking at technology, and they always wonder, well, can it integrate with this? Can it integrate with that, which I've also got? And I think that's such an important thing these days. And I know, putting my LawFest hat on, the amount of collaboration and that between tech companies and that now, compared to the past where everyone did their own little bit, but how important it is for the law firms and the customers for that integration sort of piece, is that knowing that your product talks to other products, so they don't have to reinvent the wheel, so products actually work in silos and that. And I just think that's, yeah, really sort of important sort of point there. And probably on that, Luke, integration for yourself. I know I'm sort of stepping away a little bit here from where I was going, but talk to us a little bit about sort of how you integrate with products and how important it is for VXT.
Yeah, we integrate pretty closely with platforms like Action Step, Clio, which is quite large in the US and Canada. It's incredibly valuable, and I think we're seeing integrations, you know, being called for by more and more people in the legal sector, and obviously that's resulting in a lot more providers like Settify and VXT building out integrations. I think it's really crucial for the future of the legal sector, because it means people can save a lot of time, provide better services to clients, and just be able to do work a lot more efficiently. So for us, that looks like, you know, you could say record your calls using Vixx, transcribe them, and then automatically capture time recordings, notes, and other data about the call in your practice management system. So yeah.
And that's perfect answer there, Luke, because that was the question I was going to, we've just had a Q&A question exactly along those lines. So yeah, you've jumped ahead, and
I might have spotted that one, Andrew, to be fair.
Which is also a good time. We've had another question, and it's probably to Amanda or Rachel to jump in here, from Tracy. Does Sedify have two-way SMS functionality that is recorded on client files?
Rachel, I'll let you answer this one.
Oh, thank you. It's probably
welcome.
Two-way SMS functionality that is recorded on client files. Is that just to?
I wonder if that might have actually been for me. I don't know. That sounds like we just launched SMS yesterday. So yeah, so you can use Vixx for two-way SMS and everywhere except for New Zealand. New Zealand is great in a lot of areas for technology and being innovative and whatnot, but for some reason we can't make it work here. But yeah, two-way SMS works in Australia, UK, Canada, and the US, as well as we actually just launched in Hong Kong and Ireland yesterday as well. So presumably we'll get it working there pretty soon too. So yeah, but Tracy, maybe, yeah.
because I was thinking, how do I answer that when I'm not entirely sure what that means?
That's why surely she'll know.
If Tracy, if that was one for Settify, just chuck us another question with a bit more details, and we'll get at it.
Yeah,
absolutely. Just there, Luke. We've been talking about automation. I mentioned before that sort of a lot of people want to know just how do we start. What are the biggest considerations for a law firm that's starting a new automation project?
Yeah, I think automation is really exciting, and a lot of people, you know, and it's important, right? A lot of people look at it sometimes as a bit of a silver bullet, but I think it's really important to take a step back. And the way I always suggest to our customers when we're talking about this is to think about like the problems to be solved. You know, what might be holding you back from your goals as a firm. Well, obviously, one of the steps that we took when trying to identify kind of similar problems from an outsider's perspective was really understanding where staff spend their time and what things that they complain about at work. Because you know, so that I think that's a really good practice. And you know, the biggest problems in your firm will look really different depending on the type of legal work you do. For instance, a lot of our customers do a significant amount of residential property conveyancing because they tend to make the most phone calls. And as a result, they spend so much time on administrative tasks associated with those calls. Whereas, you know, in different specializations of law, that's probably not the biggest problem. And there are other things to take a look at. But I think, you know, something that you both, everyone touched on earlier was considering what clients are looking for. I mean, Sedify spoke a lot about the types of services clients are demanding from their firms. And there's heaps of research out there. For instance, I know that, you know, from research that younger generations are a lot more likely to prefer remote methods of communications. But we know at the same time, when it comes to those key decisions throughout like a legal matter, people still tend to prefer those more traditional methods like phone calls, for instance. So that's definitely something to keep in mind as well. I think in terms of thinking about where to start, probably just sit down with some staff in your firm, just a quick 30-minute interview with a bunch of questions. I mean, you might already know exactly what people are complaining about, but you know, asking them those questions around what frustrates them regularly, because I think, you know, especially if you find those answers to be the same across a large number of people at the firm, that's a really great place to start, I think.
And just on that, so you talk about sort of automation solutions. What are out there?
Yeah, I think there's obviously we talked about how the whole ecosystem of solutions that law firms have available to them has kind of exploded over the last like 5 to 10 years. There's a lot of stuff out there. I think really no matter what problem you're trying to solve, there's probably a LegalTech company like Settify or Vixx out there that has a solution really fit for your firm. They might even, you know, they might even build their software with a particular type of law firm in mind. So I know Settify, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, is family law is a really big focus for you guys. So, and for us, it's often a residential conveyancing, and I think that that's super important to consider. You know, a lot of the larger firms we're working with look at practice management systems like Elite 3E, which is often a really great system for larger firms. But then, you know, you look at a smaller, more nimble law firm, and maybe they're considering action steps. So yeah, and I think you know, obviously there's heaps of tools out. Document automation like Joseph is really cool. Another Australian company, I think I mentioned Law Geeks earlier, which is going to be really helpful for contract negotiation. Obviously Vixx is a great tool if you're thinking about automation for around your communications. And I guess, like, if I were to give some final advice, it'd be to put more emphasis on integrations between tools that you're thinking about using, because there's just like integrations are phenomenal. And I think personally, I think that they speak to how fast a provider is going to improve their software for you if they can build a great network of partners that integrate with their products.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and I'd
yeah.
comment on that, if you don't mind, Andrew, because we obviously speak with hundreds of firms and everyone's in a different boat. But what I kind of find, we do a really good investigation with the firms in terms of what is it you actually need, because you don't want to provide a platform that they may not need or what's suiting their needs and wants. And as Luke mentioned, finding platforms and doing your research and just meeting with the tech companies to say, who do you integrate with? This is what we're seeking. We want to be able to automate these processes. Some firms want to be able to have all of their documents automated for them, but other firms want to steer far away from that. So the priorities of the firm, the lawyers, the clients, the clientele, the areas that you're working in is very dependent on what tools would be the best for you. And just having a little bit of a chat with some key people in the industry to say that we get people all the time that are coming to us. I think this is another trend. Sole pracs, it's just blown up, I think, in the last couple of years. Everyone's kind of taking off and starting their own firm. And we get people that contact us and say, which practice management system do you recommend? Because I want one that integrates with this, and I want something that types up my file notes for me. And, there's all these ecosystem, as you said, and it's just a really good way to find out is to just reach out and see what's available.
Yeah, absolutely, Rachel. And like you mentioned practice management systems. We're talking before about sort of the growth of tech that's out there. Probably a few years back, we were still playing the game where we had to convince people of why we had to go down this path, why we needed to innovate. Whereas in some ways, it's fantastic that for most people, we've gone past that, we get that. It's now, how do we go about it? And I think that's just so refreshing. I know when I look back a few years ago, at certain times you thought to yourself, would we ever in the legal profession get there? But we've definitely made some strides, and it's great to see the new technology that's coming in, like you said there, Rachel, around people finding out what's a problem, what's a pain point, and developing solutions to meet those needs. And I think that's really, really important. And that probably brings us on to, yes, we talk about sort of people that are there and doing things, but what do you see, probably to you, Rachel, what do you see as the main hesitation for law firms still to adopt legal tech?
I think it's pretty predictable. It can be narrowed down to a few key factors, which are probably no surprise to anyone. I think it's the fear of the unknown, fear of change, and lastly, but very importantly, the inevitable belief that we have as lawyers and humans that technology cannot do the same job that we can, which I think is certainly, we don't promote at all that technology should be taking over the job of lawyers in any way, shape or form. And in fact, we promote the fact that Sedify is a system that will help enhance that human experience. And I think all legal tech, if you utilize it in the way that you want to, it should be able to enhance your experience and provide the expertise rather than taking away the job. You need to use it. And like, the old saying, if you can't beat them, join them. You want to be able to utilize these things to help you do a better job, because the technology is there and clients know about it. So they're going to be looking for ways to save money, be more efficient. How do I get better value? And it's so easy to just research that online now. So to keep competitive and remain, in this legal sector where people are moving towards automating their everything, you need to be able to keep up with the changes and utilize them to the best of what you can. The other thing, a big thing that we see in terms of a concern from firms is, and you probably get this as well, Luke, if we utilize the legal tech, it's going to either remove our ability to provide a personal service, or it's going to, like, how do I bill for that if I'm using technology to do that for me? And it's just wrong. It's not a valid question, because I feel like if you're using tech to give a client an opportunity to provide their background details, like, yes, maybe you don't charge for those background details, but 90% of the lawyers that we speak to in terms of, hey, how does your usual process run with engaging with your clients and getting initial information? Everyone says that they go an hour and a half over time. Client isn't focused, isn't really sure what's relevant, wants to give a big background story, spend, at least 45 minutes going through all the background details and then squeeze a bit of information in at the end and provide a letter of advice following that appointment. So, taking away the personalized service, if you've got that brief and you've got the information ahead of time, you know what the client's world and dynamics are, the client's more focused, it means you can sit down with the client and have a conversation, look at them in the eye. You don't have to spend your time writing file notes, as Amanda was saying, and you can really build rapport quickly, and it provides a really nice personal rapport building exercise where you can give solutions focused advice, or at least some great value in that first meeting rather than going over background details. And I guess last but not least, the fear of change. People say, oh, the timing's not right, or I'm too busy, I don't have time to implement this at this time. And I think that comes from, and I mean, I've experienced this myself working in firms, practice management systems historically, they take years sometimes to change over and implement. And so I think the stigma of any legal tech, if you're adopting it, you've got to learn it, you've got to make sure everybody in the firm is using it, and you're worried that people aren't going to embrace it. And it's not really like that anymore. I mean, and Luke, you can talk to what VXT takes to roll out, but Settify is usually 3 to 5 days maximum rollout. We don't need anything from the firm. We put the buttons on the website, we do a training session with the team, 15 minutes, super easy to navigate, and it's done, less than a week. So, change of processes, change of things, it's all a bit of a misconception that engaging in legal tech is going to change everything from the firm, but it's not. And that's why we just really try to encourage people to not be scared of the change and embrace it and see what it can provide, because generally it's going to make things just much easier and improve your processes to make things, streamlined and give you a lot of value and your clients.
And I think what we see now a lot is that sort of, because a lot of others have been through that journey, it's learning from others, and probably a few years, no one wants to be that first one, but sort of people being able to meet and speak to their peers at other firms and that, and see what they've done, and have to be comfortable about making some of those changes. When we talk about sort of automating or streamline the legal process, probably to you, Amanda, how does a product like Sedify achieve this?
Yeah, that's a great question. So like Rach has already mentioned as well, I think I actually touched on this a little bit, but just to expand on it, a lot of what we do is we do take on feedback from our partner firms, because we always like to improve, and we like to keep our partner firms happy as well, obviously. So, for example, one of the processes we have in place is we know a lot of family lawyers. Well, as a family lawyer, you should be advising your client to get a will. So what we've developed is when a client gets a family law platform and the wills and estates platform, all the information from family law actually feeds into the wills and estates platform. So it's kind of, you get instructions for family law and wills and estates. So that's one way. So it's called our bridging pathway, but it's a really nice segue to just get their wills done. And that's EPAs, so enduring powers of attorney, and EPG, enduring power of guardianships as well. The other way we also streamline and automate is through the integrations. And Luke, you mentioned that, how far your provider will go in terms of practice management systems, that they're going to be a good one, is a really good point. The integrations we do have, for example, in Action Step, for instance, when clients do come through Settify, the information from a click of the button, the information from Settify feeds into the action step matter. So you'll get names, addresses, contact details. All that information is put in there. So the client's not manually putting it in, the law firm's not manually putting it in themselves. So the feedback we get about that streamlining and automation process is that it saves firms about 20 minutes per matter, which in the whole scheme of things is quite significant. The other thing I wanted to touch on as well is that clients can start their matters around the clock. So rather than having to, someone will call or you can't respond to them in time, what's happening is people will start their matters. You'll get information about the client before they start their matter, and you're able to respond to them in due time and very, very quickly. And then those clients are able to convert and come on as fee-paying clients as well. So I think those are our main automation and streamlining. But just in general, in my own experience as a family lawyer, being able to look at information before meeting with my client is, I can't express how valuable it is. And especially with clients in the family law area where they are really emotional, they're fragile, and maybe they've experienced some DV, and the situation is just very, very hard for them. It's nice for them to be introduced to concepts they would have never heard of before and feel a lot more prepared when they meet with their lawyer, because it's not a nice thing having to meet with a lawyer. Like nobody wants to do that. So I probably speak for everyone out there, so it's getting a sense of the client's world also helps with that automation and streamlining as well, because you can put it into your process when clients do come on board.
Yeah, that's really probably. I'll throw the same one to you. How does a product like Vixx achieve this?
Yeah, I think it was interesting Amanda mentioned integrations. I think something I didn't really think about in the moment was probably, being able to see who's calling with Vixx is pretty helpful. So, we sync your contact details from your practice management system so that like names appear when people ring you, basically. So you can tell who it is if it's a regular client, and then decide to take the call or not. And so I think that's one thing that can be pretty helpful. But I think probably the main way that we help streamline the legal process is probably just allowing lawyers to spend less time worrying about and completing administrative work. I think it's like something like 2 hours a day is around about the average amount of time that authors are actually capturing billable hours. So the rest is often, business development or getting clients to pay or just administrative work. And so reducing that burden means there's more time to spend on actually serving your clients and, capturing billable time and doing the really valuable work, because everyone hates administrative work, to be honest. So it's kind of just a pain. And I think that resonates with everyone we talk to as well. And that means you can complete matters faster too, which is a cool benefit.
Yeah, that sounds great, Luke. If anyone's got any further questions, now's your time to ask them. The Q&A. I think we've answered 2 or 3 there. The panelists have been very good in sort of spotting some themselves and including them in their answers, which has been fantastic. But I'm sure you've got the contact details of people to, if there are questions after the webinar, to make contact directly. That probably just about brings us to the end. Probably tie it back into, we're a couple of weeks away from LawFest, and both mentioned before, both for Settify and Vixx are going to be there. Just very quickly, tell us about your movements around the event and how can people come and see you.
Yes,
Amanda or Rachel?
Amanda and I are both traveling to Auckland. We're very excited. So we're going to be there for the week of LawFest, the 26th until the 30th of September. So we're reaching out to firms at the moment to see who's interested in having an in-person demo. It's so much nicer to go into a firm, meet face-to-face and show you how things will work and get a feel. So if anybody is interested in having a demonstration with us whilst we're there, please get in contact, because we're starting to book them up now. And the other thing is we're going to have some great promotions whilst we're in LawFest. So of course, it's a great time to get in touch and sign up whilst we're there. And yeah, that's it from me, and I hope to see a lot of you there.
Yeah, I'm super excited for LawFest. I think, Andrew, it's the 28th of September, is that right?
That's correct.
Awesome. Yeah, so myself and a few cool team members from VXT will be coming up to Auckland for the event. Really excited. So we'll be hanging out at the event throughout the day, and then we'll just be in Auckland for probably a couple of days around the event as well. But you can always reach us on our website, vxt.co.nz, or if you feel like touching base via email, it's usually just first name at vxt.co.nz. So my name's Luke, so you've got that one there, and my awesome colleague Chelsea also works really closely with our legal customers, so feel free to reach out to either of us.
That sounds great, Luke and Rachel and Amanda. I think, as I mentioned at the start, if anyone is not coming already, to reach out to Settify and Vixx, and I'm sure they'll be able to help you out with some discounted last-minute tickets there. That's probably a good time to finish for today. It's a really good chat. As I mentioned before, some really good insights of data, and talking about the importance of clients and also integration. And I think sort of it's exciting times in the legal industry with people, as mentioned before, trying to figure out how we go about it. But there are tools, there are solutions out there, which is fantastic. On that note, I'd like to thank the panellists for their time today. It's been really refreshing to get their views on things. And at the same time, thank everyone that's joined us today. It's been great to have you along, and we look forward to the next one.
Andrew, thanks so much for hosting. That's been great. And thank you everyone for joining as well. Looking forward to meeting everyone face to face as well at LawFest, Andrew and Luke included. So thank you very much.
Thanks everyone. That was awesome.
Thanks everyone.
Have a great day.
See ya.
See ya.
Bye.